the meeting to order with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Are there any changes to the consent agenda? And the first item up is the ratification of the August 18th, 2025 school board meeting actions. Ruben, could you take that, please?
Sure. So at our last school board meeting, we had 4 individuals present and 2 individuals joined online. And so as a presentation went on for about 50 minutes into the board meeting, one individual left who was online and one individual left the meeting who was in person. So there were still 4 people. There was still a quorum of the board from a numbers standpoint, but in order, unless, as the RSA would state, unless it's an emergency situation, we need to have 4 individuals present at the board meeting. And so there was a fair amount that was approved after that. Typical things such as handbooks and some policies that had been on for second or possibly even third readings that were passed that night with 4 individuals. So we have those votes on record. They had to be roll call voted because there was John was the individual who was online at that point in time. That said, what in talking with attorney Gordon Graham of Soul Leslie Kidder, he indicated that we really needed to have a time of ratifying or affirming the actions of those 4 individuals because there were not 4 people present during the remainder of that time frame. Had it all happened within the first 45 minutes, not a problem, but it all happened in the latter 45 to 50 minutes of the meeting. So this language right up here was some language that Gordon provided. And if someone is interested, I can't be the one to move, but if a board member were to make a motion I'll read this, or it could be something of this nature. I move to ratify and affirm all actions taken by the Jaffrey Rindge, not Jeffrey Rindge, Jaffrey Rindge Cooperative School Board on August 18th, 2025, and without limiting the generality of that statement, to ratify and affirm the actions taken by a 4-0 vote to approve the adoption of policies, approval of the consent agenda, approval of nominations, approval of budget transfers. Both those items are in the consent agenda, and approve the draft Department of Ed 25 and MS 25 for the filing with the state. And this action is being taken because one member of the board was participating remotely, and for part of the meeting, a quorum of the board was not physically present at the place of the meeting.
And just to clarifying, this is for a full board vote, not just the 4 people that were present. This is because the full board is moving to ratify this. Yes, Charlie.
An abstention is a vote for the majority. Correct.
Say that one more time.
I said an abstention is a vote for the majority. Is that correct?
And I think an abstention is a vote that's allowed here, but I don't think it necessarily votes for the majority. I think you're just saying I'm not going to cast a yes or no vote.
All right. Somebody want to make a motion?
I will make the motion as read.
Okay. Second.
Second it.
Thank you, Christine. Thank you, Sandra. Any further discussion?
I'll just note that I wasn't in attendance or online, so I think I should likely abstain from this.
No, well, please don't, like, not
Okay.
for that reason, like, that's why I said, this is literally. The whole board can vote to
Okay.
say, yeah, because when the minutes are there, what we voted on, you're saying, yes, I agree on what the.
What the process was and that,
Exactly.
okay, that it
And
was
so-
the result, that the results of the meeting are valid. Okay, fair enough.
Any other clarifying? All right, all those in favor?
I,
Opposed? Abstain? Vote passes 7-0.
Great, thank you.
All right, we're opening up to our first session of public comments. The policy is on the screen. And the members of the public present, and maybe we have people online.
Do no one raise their
All right, well, take your time there.
Do you mind if I just sit?
Don't mind, but I do ask you to use the microphone just for the online audience. It doesn't amplify your voice for us. It's just the
Okay.
online.
Kathy Kozlowski, Gringe. And just some thoughts that I've been having by attending the meetings, trying to learn the whole process of what happens. And one thing that I thought about, and I don't know how the school board, the district's website works, but I thought, or had a thought, that if each of you had a picture and a short bio about yourselves, I think it would be informative for people to see. But I also am learning that each of you are involved in, shall I call them, subcommittees? And I think that's information that's helpful for people. I'm not sure people realize how hard you all work. And I think it's important for people to realize that. That was one thing. And the second is with Zoom, and I don't know if it's just me, but I have a very hard time when you all start to talk. We don't really hear. So I don't know if it would be beneficial if there were a few more mics on the table. Because you kind of lose it, and I think we need to hear. And I think that's it.
Thank you, Kevin.
Actually, I had typed out a whole thing for myself, but
You got 15 minutes.
it's on my computer. No, I won't take 15 minutes. My understanding is that there is a presentation coming up with the New Hampshire funding project for schools. And I'm hoping that there's going to be a lot of advertising for that. I don't know when it's going to be. I think maybe October, but maybe that's something that you know. Okay,
You do.
thank you.
And I think it would be fair. Do we have anybody else online wanting to speak?
This time.
Okay, all right. So I will answer to that. We are looking for an October 16th date for the folks from the New Hampshire funding project. I'm
School funding fairness.
Funding,
say that one more time clearly.
Sorry.
the New Hampshire Fair Funding Project.
New Hampshire Fair Funding Project, yes. So October 16th is the date. This will be well advertised. And so, yes, thank you for mentioning that. And we are very excited to be hosting them and hope that many, many, many people come out to learn more about this.
Awesome, thank you.
All right, it's your time to correct me, people. Well, okay. All right. We have a second session of public comments toward the end of our meeting. So if you, people online, if you're thinking that you want to jump in, we have time then. Next on our agenda. Um.
Yeah.
Do you want me to do a?
Sure, why don't you do a
Okay.
presentation? Yep, yep.
Okay, so, if anybody's been following, one of our neighboring school districts in Claremont has been having some fiscal issues that are extremely dramatic and traumatic for that district. And, there is a lot of vagueness still about the extent of the damage. And this has caused incredible grief in that district, but really throughout New Hampshire. This is something that's really going to reflect on all of us in different ways. And so I asked Ruben to think about now we're going to start in our information sessions really getting into the budget. Now we really focus the budget. And I thought that to talk a little bit about our own financial procedures and audit controls first, to kind of just set the stage for our future budget talks, but also say, this is why, even though from everything that I've been watching on their meetings, on the Claremont meetings, I've been watching their public stations. There's still so much vagueness there, but we do have a great deal of transparency at Jaffrey Ringe, and we do have some safeguards in place that are a little different. And so I wanted Ruben and Terry to have some time to kind of showcase this. And then as such, we're going to ask that there be no comments during the presentation so that we can have a clean recording for the public and really post this really clearly and just say, look, this is here, and then have all of our questions answered afterwards, which would also be recorded and answers to that. So we just want a clean presentation recording, and then we can ask our full things. So thank you.
So I'll start off with putting this microphone between us. Carrie, I think this is going to be the most exciting presentation this school board has ever had. It is definitely the most technical one. So I do think it's important. And while many of the reasons for the challenges this other school district is having, perhaps we are not going, we're not going to experience those because of our practices and so forth, and our history and our longevity with people being in the same position for a period of time. And we'll talk a little bit about some details as we navigate this presentation. There are things that they've dealt with or that they're dealing with this or going to have to deal with this year that we too have to deal with, and it's important to talk about. So we've entitled this the Jaffrey Ringe Cooperative School District Financial Procedures and Controls. We'll talk about a little bit about the annual audit that we have, the purpose of the annual audit, review of financial audit reports. We're going to, for people who are watching tonight or will watch it later on, we'll be able to show individuals how to navigate the website to get to the information that they need to in order to learn more and spend a lot more time with our numbers, with our practices, with the information that comes to us from Plotzik and Sanderson, the audit firm. We'll talk about our checks and balances, what we put in place to make sure that we are both transparent, but also that we are very careful with the funds that our taxpayers provide to us for the running of these schools. Federal funds, that's a significant piece to all of this conversation. How do we handle our federal funds? And what does that all mean relative to cash flow? And of course, our budget process, and then we'll have time for questions. So some of this is up there. We won't read everything, but I did highlight some key aspects of this to talk about. And so we have annual audits in our school district. Every year since I've been here, and I'm sure well before that, we have had, I believe, actually Plotzik and Sanderson has been the firm, and they are the firm that did the audits of the last couple places that I was in as well. So they're very experienced in working with New Hampshire Public Schools. Audits provide independent assurance that financial information is reliable. That's important. We are not doing, well, let me correct that. We do audit ourselves quite often informally. It's important for an organization to have an outside independent audit a firm come in and do that so that we can be more assured or rest assured that we are doing the right things. Or if we're finding something like a challenge, they're letting us know what we could be doing better. So audits provide independent assurance that financial information is reliable, ensuring government operations are transparent, accountable, and run efficiently and ethically. Is there anything, Carrie, that you'd like to add to the purpose of the annual audit? Because this is your fun time of the year, every year. Do not bother Carrie during audit.
The only thing I guess I'd like to add is that we have a lot of internal controls in place, and we'll go through that in the next couple of slides to talk about how, what we have in place to help mitigate fraud. Some of that is also the purpose of the audit, and reviewing our controls. So the auditors will come in and go through our controls. They'll spend at least 2 days in the district, usually at the beginning of August, reviewing our controls. Then they come out for the full field audit at the end of August.
For the people who are going to watch this later on, or maybe it's a question that might come up, what do we mean by controls? What's another way of putting it?
It's methods that we have in place to ensure that we're following our school board policies, and we're also ensuring that there are multiple layers. So we'll go into that on another slide too. We talk about segregation of duties. So we're making sure that what we're doing has different levels and different people seeing it, so that not one person can do the entirety of a function and possibly mismanage something.
Yeah, and that's their number one question when they come in for me is to talk about fraudulent possibilities. Is there any possibility of that happening? I mean, it comes around to controls. Right. So the review of financial audits. So let's see if I can click on this. If you go to our website, sau47.org, and then go to departments, down to business, and is it financial reports?
Yes.
We'll go to financial reports.
Then you go to the annual financial audits on the left. Yep.
And you'll see we have all of our audits. The 2025 audit has been done, but they don't have it written up, I don't believe, for
It's
it.
not
But
final.
it's not finalized at this point.
But they have come out. Yeah.
But we have 2024 all the way back to 2014. So we have 10 years of audits here. So that if anyone wants to look at our practices, what the auditors, this independent agency, has to say about us and our financial dealings over the last decade, you can look at that, and we'll have a new one. And sometimes we have findings. They're not usually major findings, but if we have findings, what are the areas that, well, I guess we'll ask two questions. One, when we have findings, what might be an area that schools would likely have findings on? And then what maybe are a few of the findings that we've had? A lot of the time we don't have findings. We
Right.
are in
So
good order.
in all my years that I've been here, and I've been here for about 16 years, we've never had a major finding. So any finding has been, a minor finding, so it wouldn't impact any ability to borrow. It doesn't, when you have a minor finding, they're saying this is just an area to improve on. There's no impact to the financial statements. So there's nothing that we're doing in that finding that would state that our financials are inaccurate. So an example of a minor finding would be if we received a cash deposit or a check of some kind, and our policy states that we have to make a deposit by Friday, so it can't be held over the weekend, and that deposit isn't made until Monday, that could potentially be a finding. So it's something that small, just that we're not, we missed something, or if there were a couple episodes of that, or maybe last year, say in our student activity accounts that a check wasn't deposited timely within that week, it was deposited the following week, and it happens again, then they might write us up and say that's a finding. And that's typically the areas we've had our findings is with student activity funds. I don't think we've had a finding in any other area except for maybe policy related that needed to be updated.
And so you can see over here that not only do you have the annual financial reports, but you have annual reports and year-to-date revenue reports. Also, if you go to departments and you go down to business right here, come budget season, you'll have access to past and current budget information. And certainly I would encourage anyone to come here and, explore any department, and whether it be the business, human resources, student services, facilities. Right now it's a little bit shakier because we've made some changes, but we do have some information there that would be helpful. These are some quotes, and these are typical. This is from 2024. In our opinion, the accompanying financial statements present fairly in all material respects. I'm going to read it from here. In all material respects, the respective financial position of the governmental activities, each major fund, and the aggregate remaining fund information of the Jaffrey Ringe Cooperative School District as of June 30th, 2024, and the respective changes in financial position and the respective budgetary comparison for the major general grants and food service funds for the year then ended in accordance with accounting principles generally accepted in the United States of America. In our opinion, the Jaffrey Ringe Cooperative School District complied in all material respects with the compliance requirements referred to above that could have a direct and material effect on each of its major federal programs for the year end June 30th, 2024. And if you were to go to that website and look at other reports, you would find very similar language in all of those reports. And that's a distinction between what we do and what the district that we spoke of earlier tonight, they have. My understanding is that they hadn't had an audit for several years, maybe since the COVID timeframe, and not having regular audits, even if it's just every 2 years. But we do the maximum every year. We think that's important. We think that's responsible. And so that's the importance of having an audit. You need outside entities to come and do what Carrie said, either inform us of any practices that we need to improve, or be able to give us, in a sense, a clean bill of health. Like, you've done great. Keep it up. Keep moving forward. And so if we especially, we've been fortunate in this district. Carrie's been in her position for quite some time. I've been in my position for quite some time. a lot of locations don't have that type of longevity. It's actually very rare that that's the case, especially with the business administration role. It is hard to find people who are going to be in that position, and it's really tough, especially because of you see federal funds, food service, the general budget that we have, and all the laws that keep on changing. It's very difficult in a public school setting to make sure everything's straight all the time. And all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed. So especially in those types of environments where they have a lot of turnover, you have to have an outside entity checking what you're doing. Checking what you're doing. We internally check what we're doing. So our checks and balances. Would you like to take this one, Carrie?
Sure. So I don't know that it's necessary to go through all of this,
Mhm.
but a key part of internal controls is segregation of duties. As I explained earlier, where one individual is not doing the entirety of a process. So for example, we have separate individuals that process the biweekly payroll. A different person sets up employees. A different person will add bank accounts so that the person setting up the employees can't add bank accounts. And then a different individual creates positions. So that way, one person isn't doing the whole step, and that is to help mitigate fraud so that one person can't set up a dummy account for themselves and get paid. And then we also have oversight. So the person that's setting up payroll, that's reviewed by a different individual to check it. So there are those types of controls in place. We also have somebody who records cash receipts, and then a different person that creates the bank deposits, and another one that does bank reconciliations. And those are all part of your segregation of duties that's important to have within an organization to ensure that you're that no one's doing anything that they're not supposed to do. And journal entries, another example, is done by the finance manager, and then I review and approve them. We also have multiple levels of approval for all of our Frevel forms. If we're hiring an employee, we have someone's entering the form, and then it goes to the manager, then it goes to HR, then it goes to the superintendent, and then it comes over to the business office, and then it'll go to the school board as notice on the school board minutes. So all of those types of things, including purchase requisitions, one person enters it, the manager approves it, and then some of them have multiple levels of approval before they come over to the business office. And none of them are processed unless all of the documentation is attached to those requisitions for whatever it is we're purchasing, because our school board approved purchasing guidelines has different thresholds for different dollar amounts of what we're purchasing on what's required, along with the laws and for grants and everything else. So that's kind of a summary of some of it.
And during the 2020, 21, 22 timeframe, that's when we started to use that. I believe Leslie did give a presentation on Frevo and that system, which is an internal process of basically a form routing process. She writes the code, she puts the documents together. We do a lot of testing with individuals to make sure the workflow goes properly, that we can have the right attachments, etc. And if something is not in line, we can, send it back to the individual to make corrections. And so, which is much more efficient than using pencil and paper or pen and paper. So we don't do much of anything actually anymore through paper. And then let me see if I can find the Frevo system here. All bookmarks. Let's go here. I'm not going to go through and show you like a whole routing process, because I would need more than me to do that. But it is important to look at, so our business office forms, We have mileage vouchers, missing inaccurate timesheets, travel reimbursement, vendor contracts, W-9 for vendors, HR forms. We have, this is for signing off on staff handbooks, inter-office forms. You can see superintendent forms, student services forms has a lot of them, onboarding employees. You can see all the forms and all the detail that goes on into making sure that that's a smooth process. And I believe we have some more that I don't have access to, but like, I don't think anyone wants me to create a miscellaneous payment voucher or anything of that nature. They don't like me hiring anyone or touching any of those documents. I don't know why, Larry. But it's not in my forms. So, but it's a good process and one that also at the very end of everything, we have a system called DocStar where these are turned into PDFs and then stored digitally, and they are given a file names for easy access. So if we ever wanted to find something within, as long as we understand what the name is supposed to be, about 20 seconds, 30 seconds, we're able to pull up anything to find. Yeah, yes. Yeah, I believe so. There we go. Federal funds. Revenue offsets expenses. When budgeting federal funds, revenues offset expenses, meaning they net to a $0 tax impact to the voters. Expenses and revenues are budgeted equally. Only actual expenditures are reimbursed as revenue to the school district. Federal funds, whether we actually incur expenses each month using federal funds, or sometimes we don't spend federal funds within a month, let's say Title II or Title I, maybe we'll go a month or two without spending something, they still get reported on. So your office, specifically Leanne, is the one reporting to the Department of Education every single month. And making sure that we're hitting our deadlines. You can see that number 3, monthly expenditure reports are submitted in all of the grant areas to the Department of Education by the 10th of the month. That is what all places are supposed to do. Sometimes I think that does not happen, judging by some of the conversations we have about federal funds with individuals when we have grant conversations online. But we follow this process pretty tightly. Anything you'd want to add about our processing with federal funds?
No, just that, that's what the state looks for us to do, to have it submitted by the 10th of the following month for the prior month, to have our reports submitted to them so that they can keep up with everything. In addition, it's better for us because then we will get reimbursed, hopefully sooner. The districts have to front the money in advance and then get reimbursement from the state afterwards, so that can make cash flow tight. And I know we have a separate slide on that. If we have some larger expenditures that come through, or we're in a particularly tight budget year. But I think part of the reason for putting this slide up is I believe that there were some conversation about that other district that may have received some grant money and or actually was supposed to receive grant money and incurred the expenses but never submitted to get reimbursed. So it's very, very important to make sure that you're submitting for those reimbursements, because there are deadlines with grants, and if you don't get the reports submitted when the grants close, then you've now incurred those costs without getting the revenue that you had expected. And you haven't raised and appropriated the money through taxation for those expenditures.
And so during the time of COVID, when we had the 2 or 3 rounds of ESSER funds, that was millions of dollars. So we had, was a job and a half just to, manage those funds and do everything we needed to do with those. We, especially because we did a construction project with our ESSER funds, we added in both the elementary schools and in part to this building as well, HVAC units, HVAC systems that needed to be done. We had a mindset of taking ESSER funds and spending them in a way that was going to benefit the whole community as best we could. And so we did that, but there were a lot more rules and regulations when you're talking about using federal funds to do any construction. So that was quite challenging, but we were able to get all of our money back, which was great, and save millions save the community millions of dollars by doing it at that point in time before prices went in another direction. And the direction wasn't down. But you mentioned at the very end, cash flow. And we would suspect that that would be a challenge for the district that you were talking about over in Claremont.
Correct. So, if you have any budget constraints, or you're in a particularly tight budget year, or if you have inaccurate financials, it can create a cash flow issue, as I just brought up. If you have spent money that you expect to get reimbursed from a grant, and then you don't submit for the reimbursement, now you've incurred all of these expenses that weren't, and you didn't budget, you didn't get the revenue that you had budgeted for. And I just wanted to bring up an example. In the fiscal year 21-22 year, we had payments to, as Ruben mentioned, an HVAC, to a vendor for the HVAC project. And we did have to hold payments towards the end of that fiscal year to that vendor of about $550,000 because we needed to make payroll. So that was a particularly tight year. So we had no financial mismanagement. However, we had a very tight budget. It was also a year we used about $400,000 in the retainage fund for the parking lot work. So we had incurred those expenses as well. So it's just some of the expenses we had to send to this vendor were between $500,000 and $8,000 at a time, and then we're waiting to get reimbursed. So that's cash that comes out of our account that we've got to manage to make sure that we have cash to pay for other things until we get reimbursed.
How this, I guess a question, and we didn't have this, and I hope I'm not putting you on the spot with this question, but I know that you and I look at our finances every single week. And we certainly this past year looked at them very tightly, and in the spring, and then since we started this year as well. We had a challenging budget season and had to make some changes, had to make some cuts. We also, the board approved the spending of some funds in order to retain some programming for the year. Where are we at? And how are we with our cash flow? What has the impact been? If there, I mean, it's early, right? We've been in just a little over a week in school, but nonetheless, I've signed off on manifests and we've spent.
Right. So at this point in time, we have about 2.2 million of funds that haven't been encumbered yet. So I would say that that's our budget balance. So those are our actual expenditures plus anything we've encumbered. So our budget balance is about 2.2 million. We're usually not at that point until around December or January in a year. So we are hitting that point earlier. That doesn't include any substitutes or any co-curriculars, except for maybe the few ones from the fall that have been put in place for stipends for those individuals. And that 2.2 includes the roughly 2 million or 1.1 million that the board authorized to use for the retainage fund. So if we didn't have the retainage fund, it would be that much less in our budget balance at this point in time. So we're looking at, I mean, if you want to consider the athletics and co-curriculars plus any substitute costs, that's probably going to be about, $450,000 to $500,000 through the end of the year that you would take off of that figure I just gave you, just for when you're looking at what we did last year for those expenses. And then plus, of course, we haven't had the winter yet, so we haven't spent any money for staff to come in after hours for cleaning, snow or removal, and a lot of repair and maintenance that just happens to the buildings throughout the year. I mean, you don't encumber everything at the beginning of the year. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, no, I think that was good. It's nice. So. The budget process. Do you want to take this one right here, just briefly?
This is just a short synopsis for people that want to look at the slide after or watch the video. That I think it gets confusing when we do a budget process, because a lot of people want to count the revenues that we get and, hey, we'll donate this or we'll donate that for revenue, but you budget your gross budget inclusive. So you don't even consider your revenue. You're budgeting what all of your expenses are gonna come up to. So you're not budgeting the net budget. The net budget would be your expenses less any revenues you expect to gain. So when you're looking at warrant article number 2, or it's typically warrant article number 2, unless we have a bond, your operating budget is going to include what you expect to spend for your general fund, your food service fund, and your grant revenues. And then you minus out any revenues that you expect to get, what the tax impact would be, because that's what you're raising and appropriating. But you're budgeting the full gross budget on that warrant article. So when we go into a year and we're spending money, we're not allowed to spend more than what the voters have approved us to spend, unless we have qualifying unanticipated revenue and we've received approval to accept unanticipated revenue. That would be really the only exception. Or trust funds, but those are kind of those are outside of what you put on the warrant article.
And so if we look back at all of this conversation tonight with the audits, with our controls, I mean, the audit kind of guides or kind of summarizes everything that we are doing and lets us know if we can do some things better. You mentioned this in this last slide that the gross budget, the budget is usually Article 2 unless we have a bond, which would go before that. And I was just thinking about, when we have this conversation a lot, the importance of having really strong or really clean audits for the purposes of being able to borrow. Can you just talk a little bit about our school districts spending or our borrowing power, or
Yes.
anything that has to do with that?
If we were going to go out for a bond, we would be, incurring long-term debt. In order to do that, you need to retain bond counsel. So you need to get a legal firm that can prepare a bond and a legal opinion that tells the bonding agency. So we'll use New Hampshire Municipal Bond Bank, because that's where we typically would get our bonds. They would express a legal opinion to the bond bank stating whether or not they were confident in our ability to pay back that loan. And in order to receive that positive opinion, there's an extensive amount of documentation they need. But one of the most important pieces is your most recent financial audits. And if you can't prove that you have good audits, that your audits have been clean, then they may not give you a clean legal opinion, and then you wouldn't be able to borrow for the long-term debt for whatever project we were looking to do.
Mhm.
Did that explain it?
I think so. And I think it can affect rates, correct? Is that true, or maybe not?
Not typically. Usually that's based on the term, when you're talking about bonds.
Mhm.
but it could be for something else, different
Right.
type of borrowing.
Thank you. So we're at the end of what we've prepared relative to this topic. What questions might you have or comments?
Carrie, I had a couple. Do you have positive pay?
Yes, we do.
And do we do any investing?
I'm sorry, do we do what?
Do we do any investing?
We have something that's set up that we're authorized to use. Yes, we provide to the auditors for that as well. Yeah.
Do we
So
have an
that
investment policy?
we do, and the board approves it every year.
Okay,
And that actually needs to go on an agenda. So thank you.
Yeah.
For that to approve again.
Couldn't we save money by having less qualified business? Sorry, I'm just kidding. Actually, I was thinking the opposite. When it comes to so many of the things that you just covered, it seems that the idea that you and the superintendent look at our finances every week is a tremendous strength to our district, and allows us not only to avoid the kinds of things that have happened in a neighboring district, but also to apply for grants and go after funds that other districts really don't have the capacity for. I did have a question though. Based on our decisions on August 4th to include the contingency money in our budget, will there be a new budget posted on our business page? And if so, when would that happen?
So typically I would not, because that doesn't change what you reported to the state. So you would not change the report, your official documentation that was sent to the state. That usage of the retainage money didn't actually change our budget. It's allowing us to spend the money, but our budget is what was approved by the voters.
So the budget, I guess, was cut from 33 million proposed to 30 million and something. So that's
Roughly,
what
yeah.
has been.
So what I do, I have to do something internal to adjust the budget to allow the expenditures to even take place. Our system is set up so that if there isn't any money in a line that's non-salary or benefit related, that requisition can't even be entered. So I have to make a one-sided budget adjustment just to allow it for the year, but I have to back it out because at the end of the year, I have to back it out because your budget needs to match what the voters approved when you're doing all of your final financial documentation. We just provide the minutes and the support to justify and show why we were allowed to spend the money because we went through the procedures in place to have the public hearing and the school board voted. So the auditors have provided all of that to support our expenditures for the year.
Okay, so in looking at the budget documents, that maybe I'm just missing them, but I see our default budget, which of course wasn't approved because we had an amended budget approved.
Mhm.
I see the proposed budget and the default budget, but I don't see the amended budget. Where would I find that? In other words, the budget after the voter approval.
We don't usually provide all of those documentations until we go into budget season. So then I would prepare documents that show what this year's adopted budget is, and that would be all of your voter approved appropriations included. So any additional warrant articles that the voters approved. So that's typically when I put all of that together.
The 400,000 for facilities and the 50,000 for special education, all that gets added in. But that's presented
For the trust
budget
funds.
season.
Typically, yes, it's part of the documentation when we're comparing what this year's budget is to what we're proposing for next year.
Okay, how much does the state give us per student? As you know, towards their tuition, like, do we get 7,500 per student or, because I'm looking at it, looks like it's 30,000 per student if you divide you know, the $30 million budget by the 1,000 students, then how much does it cost us to educate one student? Like, what's our cost per student?
Do you want to, so are you talking about cost per pupil?
So,
Yeah.
so there was
Yeah.
there are two questions there. So one's cost per pupil, which is a formula that the state
State.
uses
Yeah.
annually. And then there's adequacy. And I believe adequacy is at $4,900 per, is it? I think it's 49.
I think it is too.
And then I think there's some extra funds if you are low income, Title I, or
English as a second.
English as a
language.
second language, and also if you have an IEP.
Okay.
So there are some funds that are provided, but it's in the realm of between 49 and 5,500, 5,600 around there.
Okay, so when you're doing the calculation,
Mhm.
that is part of our $30 million budget. It includes what we get from the state. Okay,
Yeah.
okay, so it's approximately 30,000 per pupil to,
If you divided the whole
budget
by
by
the
the number
number,
of students.
yeah, that's not how the state determines cost per pupil.
right,
But
but I know
that's
as-
one way of.
as
of
a
looking at it.
taxpayer, you'd be like, okay, how much,
Yeah.
you know, if we were to trade up and,
Mhm.
you know, send the kid to another district or they go, you know, to Lionheart or something like that. Okay, and how does that compare to other districts? Are we pretty much in the middle?
The lower 25th percentile.
Good, okay.
Yeah, our high school actually is we might actually now be the lowest.
Nice.
It depends. I mean, it depends on how you look at it.
Well, it's good to be
Um,
thrifty, and I do appreciate how attentive you are to everything.
But I think, I think if you look at the fact that, for instance, the high school probably this year, they were what, third from the last in spending last year. So we'll find out this year around budget season where we're at. But, in that process, getting the School of Excellence, getting a 9 out of 10 best schools rating for their, which is used for real estate. And I think they're, in the upper quartile or third within the US News and World Report this year. So we're not in the top 10, of those, but we're in the, upper third. So if you think we're spending about the least and we're achieving there, we're doing well in many ways. There are some metrics that we can do better in. And so we have to continue to work in those areas.
Great, yeah.
Yeah, and those are primarily around like our last meeting, our state assessment results. Yep.
Can I just do a follow-up question on
Mhm.
the question that Judy asked, which I think so many people ask about, we know what our student population is when we look at our budget and, inevitably you want to divide the one into the other.
Mhm.
But the state doesn't do it that way, and the state has, I presume, sound reasons. And I know we've talked about this, it's a little bit complicated. I think it's transportation, is that one of the things that they don't take into account because different districts have different transportation needs, or but what can you tell us about that, Carrie? Why is it, so unintuitive?
Yeah, it is a formula that the state uses, and I don't know if I can pull it up at my fingertips that readily, that talks about, let me see if I have it. mm.
So the
Just to
cost
give it
per
a name.
pupil represents current expenditures less tuition and transportation costs. That's the one you're looking for.
That's right, generally it, so.
There you go.
So it's current expenditures, less local food service revenue, less transportation, less supplemental expenditures. And then you divide your average daily membership and attendance. So let's see if it has anything else here that would be helpful. So I'm pulling up one that's a couple of years old, but. So back out high school transportation costs minus any transportation property. Back out any tuition, capital expenditures, summer school expenditures. Back out local food service revenue, which is proportional to the high school, all current general fund, special revenue fund, food service fund expenditures. So I'm basically reading from a document that came from the state. There are some videos that the state has put out to help explain cost per pupil. What I can do is if I'm allowed to share it, I can maybe post it on the website on the budgeting page. That way people can link on it and get a better explanation coming from the state.
Hey, did you say that capital expenditures are not included?
Correct.
Okay, so that would be a significant fact.
And our cost per pupil last year, I believe, was around 19,000 and some change. I think Keene School District was about 100 or a couple hundred less per pupil than we are. They, have many more individuals, many more students in that system. I guess, I don't know if it's Keene or I think it's just Keene, not SH29. And I think Messinic and this school district hover very closely together.
The New Hampshire average, according to education, NewHampshire.gov, New Hampshire average for the end of 2024 was 21,545. Our average last year 20,655.
Yeah.
So that's including the preschool.
Thank you. Barry,
Yes.
been listening to your presentation and thank you so much for taking the time to put this together and for being here this evening. I appreciate it. Am I correct in hearing that an audit is the state of New Hampshire does not require an audit? Is there?
I don't know how accurate that is. I do know that I have to complete a report to the Department of Revenue every year stating when we're going to be able to provide the audit. We have to give it to them. And up until this year, there was a governmental threshold for your grants that if you spent more than 750,000, you had to have what was called a single audit. And we exceed that threshold every year. It's going to increase to $1 million for this fiscal year. If you don't spend more than $1 million, then you don't have to have it. So that is part of the overall audit, is they do that single audit in addition to the overall audit. I also have to submit the annual audits to the bond bank. Now, since we're paying a bond, every year I have to provide them the audit. So I did pull up the RSA and I'm unclear what the actual regulation is surrounding it. I do know that you can elect internal audits, but I think your population in the area towns has to be under a certain threshold in order to do that. So I'm sorry, we could get probably legal advice on that. I have to provide it to different entities every year.
Obviously, there's huge benefits to having these audits done, and I
Yes.
appreciate the incredible amount of work that you and your office do to get that prepared. I do have another question though. It was a few years ago that I believe one of our local school districts, what we're reacting to right now is problems that a school district had. Basically, we believe because of internal problems, but I remember a few years ago, there was a local school district that had, I guess, external fraud, right? Do you remember that? There was somebody answered the phone, it's like they responded to a spam call basically and sent out money. may have been my first year in the school board.
Yeah.
I'm sure you want to say that.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
know.
the town. Might have been the
Yeah.
town.
Was it the
Yeah.
town or the
Peterstown.
It was the
It
town.
was Peterborough, the town.
Yeah, they were paying for the bridge and stuff with.
And
incentive
we
frauds.
have processes in place to prevent that from
Positive
happening as
pay.
well. I know that's a whole
Yes.
nother.
Yeah.
Yes.
We have
with-
positive pay, so in positive pay, if somebody tries to. We have a vendor list that the bank knows, and if somebody comes in that's not in this vendor list, they don't pay it. Unless they check with Carrie or for the town, they check with me and say, is this right?
Okay,
And we have to approve it.
okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's why I asked her if she had it.
Yep.
Because the town has had a couple of incidents where people have tried to cash checks. You know, a $10,000 check from some guy in San Diego, like what would he have the $10,000 check from the town for? The bank says, we don't know this guy, he's not on your list, and I say, yeah, no. Wait,
Thank you.
Right, so we also have internal controls in place too, so a vendor can't just send us change documentation, say that they want to change the bank routing number that they use. We actually will pick up the phone and call the number we have on our file, not wherever that change came from, to verify whether or not that's legitimate. In addition, if somebody wants to change their direct deposit for payroll, we make them physically come in with the change form, and we have 2 people review it to make sure that it's actually valid.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Mhm.
Carrie is spot on. The treasurer Jeffrey approves.
Ruben, I'm curious how the Claremont district, I guess, was able to fail to produce water reports for 3 years in a row and yet still operate it. How could that happen?
I don't know, and I don't know, I haven't spoken with the district, but I can imagine that what took place. I can imagine that what could have possibly taken place, especially when you have turnover at the central office. And especially if an issue came up where there was some spending due to receiving of federal funds, and then maybe that was not reimbursed. And if you got behind by 2, 3, I mean, we had how many millions if we must have had upwards of 4 million or something during that time frame.
Yeah.
That district would have had more. So $4 to $5 million. Let's say none of it was acquired again for whatever reason. I don't, or even if 2 million. If you got to that spot and you had to, like you said, you had to pay up front out of your budget, and you're going to lose cash flow and everything like that, you might end up potentially, let's say in a hypothetical situation, a business administrator says, I think I'm moving on. And someone else comes in and goes, ooh, we've got an issue. Well, we've got to pay these bills, and they're paying their last year's bills out of the current year's funds and saying, I hope we're going to be able to kind of even it out at the end, but maybe it doesn't happen. And that pattern carries on for a couple of years. I can see being in really rough shape. So that's just me imagining what could take
What
place.
could have happened?
Yeah, so I'm constantly trying to spend money the following year and no, that's not true. I am the more creative budgeter out of the 2 of us, but Carrie has this kind of has this little, we joke around about it, kind of that Ghostbusters symbol, like it comes in creative, and she has creativity, budgeting with a little cross canceled out of that, no creativity.
Yeah, I have a couple comments and a specific question I think that maybe will apply to this budget season. I think first off, I echo what Christine said. Thank you for coming and explaining this. I think it's important for us to hear, and certainly the people that are able to watch. I guess one thing that I've come to appreciate over the last couple of years is how kind of unique and dynamic school budgeting is. I came in thinking maybe I knew, about budgeting and how to handle it, but there's a lot about what you do and what your people do that is completely different for anything in the corporate world that relies on, statutes, and these things can change a lot. So I just think it's important for people to understand that it's a unique job that not anybody can do. And I've seen the benefit, I guess, that having an experienced person in that position has. So I definitely appreciate that. And I know I've probably come in and had you explain a million things to me in the first few years, and I don't do that as much anymore because I'm confident that everything is going according to plan. Another thing, when we talk about these, redundancies and controls that we have in the process, I think it's important for us as board members and for people at home watching to understand how important this is. As we approach budget season, we're constantly under pressure to reduce, especially, administrative staff. What do we have all this administrative staff for? They're not dealing with students directly, right? These people are not people that deal with students directly, but it is an important job, and it's a huge risk mitigation for the district to enable the district to function, right? We have a $30 million+ district. It can't be run by one person. Simply that one person can't do all the work, and then there's reason to have those redundancies. And all those people are extremely busy. It's not like, they're all standing in a line doing things. They all have unique jobs. So I think it's important for people to appreciate that part of it. Well, certainly it doesn't guarantee that something like that can't happen. I don't think that anyone on this board is, lying awake at night. I wasn't when I heard that in Claremont. My initial thought was like, I'm glad that we've had people there for so long that know their job, that know the history of the district. I didn't lose a minute of sleep about that. So definitely appreciate that. Now I have a question. One thing that came up certainly during this last budget season and is likely to come up again, and I don't think I understand completely, is like this donations. Remember, people were saying, well, what if, we'll take that 1.1 million, right? And what if we just received a donation for that? What if there was an outside group or group of groups that said, we've raised the money, we want to pay for that next year, or any sort of portion of that? I guess, how would that work in relation to like this budget season? Like, when would we need to know? What would the process need to be? And I'm talking about for next year. Is there anything specific? You don't need to answer now, but I think it's a question that will come up.
Yeah, for accepting donations, well.
Yeah, for next year, right? Let's say that hypothetical situation, say, I'm going to pay for athletics next year.
Right. So when you're budgeting your revenues, typically you're trying to budget. You're trying to be accurate as possible, but you're also trying to be conservative, because if you budget your revenues too high and you don't receive the money, now you haven't raised and appropriated enough to pay for your expenditures. So the board has the ability to accept unanticipated revenue, but it has to be something that is not anticipated. So I would be hesitant to budget donations just because you don't know what you're going to get. And if you're going to get donations, I think the best thing would be to use it for projects, not for what should be in our normal operating budget. And then there was a question that legal counsel had brought up when we were having the discussions with him during this process, when some people brought up donations, and there was he brought up was it the free and appropriate child education, that if we started I'm sorry, I went into
Pay to play.
never mind, that wasn't what you asked me.
Okay.
So that was a different issue.
Mhm.
But we can talk about it more in the budget season. but-
Yeah, I think it would be important for everyone to understand how that works, just if there's certain deadlines and what sort of, guarantees would we need, even as a board, if there's something that the board would need to do.
Well, you had mentioned that if you are gonna budget the revenue, you gotta budget the expenditure. And so if we are saying, for instance, let's say, oh, yeah, someone's gonna pay for athletics, so that we're gonna get some sort of revenue for athletics. Well, we're gonna have to raise, we're gonna have to put that in for the expenditure. And then we better, if we're not budgeting for it within, and asking it to come through taxation, better hope that that comes through.
Right, you
Yeah.
still have to budget the expense.
Right.
Because you have to be given the authority to spend the money. And then the revenue would just reduce the tax impact.
Okay, yeah, I think I understand. Yeah, and I think we should.
It would have to be a
continue to
reliable,
discuss it.
very
Right.
reliable
I
source.
guess
Like,
it
for
would be-
instance, an example would be our student services, our special education aid. There's some level of reliability, although lately it hasn't been as good, but hopefully it will rebound. But there is, they give us kind of a range, and that range is at least backed up by law, that they have to give us something. So there's some reliability when we budget for that.
Right, and then the revenues are finalized in the fall. And that typically happens, so I already had to submit the revenue report to the Department of Revenue Administration, and they typically reach out to me in October to actually go through the report and to make any adjustments to like special aid. Special education aid. And even at that point in time, we usually don't know what the final number is. So we're budgeting a percentage of what we think we're gonna get. Because if we budget the full amount and then we don't get it, now have a revenue shortfall.
So in this case, the case that I'm talking about, would the donation need to be made in the fiscal year? Let's say I had $1 million and I wanted to donate it. I'm just gonna lay out a process here. Maybe I write a letter of intent to the board saying, hey, I have this. I would like to donate it for this purpose. Would I need to wait until the next fiscal year to actually donate it? Or could it be donated right away and then used next year? I know I'm getting too specific. We can get
Yeah.
into this later.
It can't be used the following year. No, it would get returned to taxpayers if there was,
So it needs to be
excess level.
donated in the fiscal year that it's intended to be used.
yes.
I want to ask you more questions now.
You got my brain going, but I'll wait for that other presentation to ask those questions too.
And this is a hard one for me because I think it's great if we can do some of this, but I think, it enables this. It doesn't address the root of the problem, which is in Concord, right? It's like, oh, now we can raise money. I mean, in my opinion, we should be getting more money from the state and not having to do this, but I don't see that coming. So
Right.
I think we
I
need
mean,
to.
Judy mentioned the number, 7,500. Did you get that from the papers? Because that's what the court.
Yeah, I
Ruling
think
had
that's,
been
yeah, I
a
think
little
that's what
bit-
they're
little bit
supposed
over
to
that,
up
I
us
think.
to,
Yeah.
yeah,
So that's not gonna
It-
happen.
no.
So, I mean, I think we
Yeah.
face reality and do some of this
Right.
possible.
Charlie, do you have any questions?
Not really, I just have a comment. It's my understanding that our tax-based revenue is collected by the towns twice a year. When they send out their tax bills and they collect it. But you negotiate with the towns and the towns agree to a payment schedule to pay to fund the school district so much per month. And that usually is a fixed amount. In other words, $800,000 a month or something like that. Yet our expenses are like this. Some months we have bills due and we have extreme expenses, other months fewer expenses. How do you manage the cash flow to handle that kind of a situation where the towns are going to give you so much per month, but the spending is not going to be that way?
Well, that's actually a really good question, and that comes into trying not to budget too tightly, because if you do, then you run into potential cash flow issues. We haven't had that problem except for that year since I've been doing it that I brought up in the presentation. But I'm looking at that all the time on a regular basis. Over the summer, we get some money through the appropriation or the assessments to the town. And our school year staff hasn't come back yet. So we have a chance in July and August to get our cash a little bit higher so that when we start paying that payroll, we have enough in the bank account in order to make that payroll starting in September when everybody's getting paid again. So but it's something that I look at on a regular basis.
You
So
must have gone through the entire year and said, these are the major hitters, this is when I'm gonna hit, that kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah.
That's a lot of work. And a lot of magic.
Yeah.
But you're checking it all the time to make sure that you have enough to cut your, you know, your purchasing expenditures every week, your accounts payable invoices and your payroll. So payroll is first and foremost that you have to make. And then if you hold your accounts payable invoices, you do, but hopefully you don't have to because you don't want vendors getting mad and then not doing any business with you.
I'll close up with, to go back to your mention, Christine. If you listen to the, Claremont channel, to their school board meetings, there's a lot of information there that was really helpful, that kind of elucidated some things here as well. One of the things is that, I don't know if it was a representative there, but as a member of their public is introducing legislation, planning to make, annual audits of schools mandatory. So no, it's not apparently something that's now, but hopefully in the future. In line with that, do you have an idea how much it actually costs us to pay Project? I won't butcher the name.
Wazik Sanderson, yeah.
Yep, well done. I know you've been saying it for years. So what does that cost?
Yeah, so it's, this year I think was about 22,500, I think. Or 22,000, it was one of the two. Yeah.
Well, we're budgeting for. And my last question is, what can we expect time-wise? Do you have an idea for this budget season? I know we were, like, I looked last year, we really didn't get a formal calendar until like mid-October, but do you have an idea of when things really are starting to, and clearly they're always in the works.
Yeah.
But when we can start seeing some information on our side.
Yep, so I did prepare a draft budget calendar that I've shared with Ruben, so we're looking at probably adding a date to that. And then we're discussing how we're going to do it internally with the department heads. So do you want to have that for the next meeting, Ruben? I don't know.
Yeah, I think we can put it forth in the next meeting. We're gonna be already started the conversations at a very low level with the department heads or the principals, the schools, and so we'll have to figure out the best way to do it with the board structure that we have right now. That's so it will have to be started. We'll have to start it earlier. Yeah.
And then I've got another couple of quick questions, I think. But also, just a comment about the grant funding that Claremont apparently lost because they didn't, well, it sounds like they had applied for grants, but didn't complete all the required steps to actually earn the revenue.
A lot of
And that was
steps.
something that they learned.
It's a lot of steps.
Yeah. But I compare that to the multi-tiered systems of support grant that this district was able to win this past year. I think it was $2.5 million over 5 years. Is that the amount?
Oh, one and a quarter.
One
So
and a quarter.
half of that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, still 1 and a quarter is.
Claremont actually was one of those as well. We worked with them on that. Yeah.
Interesting.
Mhm.
Well, I hope they got those monies.
Yeah, I hope so.
But in order to do that, you have to apply and your application has to be complete.
Mhm.
and it has to contain good information and you have to follow up. So when
We had, in that particular one, we had been very good partners with the Department of Education in some prior dealings, some prior grant activity that they had run. And so we were invited to that process because we had followed through because of our structures that we have in place, in part in the business office, and then that same mentality throughout the district. Yeah.
when I hear people ask about, the cost of administration, I get it, nobody wants to see administrative costs high. They'd like to see everything go to the students, but things like that grant, things like the proper management of the ESSER grants, which allow this whole district to get new HVAC systems, right? Half of it through ESSER, half of it through a lease program. I hope people are aware that these things require top-notch people, and they require people who are going to be invested in the community and stay here. And I think of the intensive learning centers and that effort. It's kind of a little different story there, but the educational creativity to create those centers and keep our students here in the district, keep them part of the community, but also save us from out-of-district placements, which cost, well, with transportation, $180,000 a year. So I mean, those kind of things are part of why we try to keep the best staff we can. And we're pretty thin in a lot of areas. We've given up our communications position. That saved us money. We've given up right now our facilities director. That saves us money, but they have costs too, because those things you can't do. So then my question is, what level of responsibility should board members take on for being aware of what's in the audit reports and other financial documents? I mean, how critical is that?
I'll give you a couple moments to think. Off the top of my head, I think that this past budget season is an example where we had, I think we had a lot of learning. I'm going to look at it through a positive lens. I think we had a lot of learning that went on this past spring, in different ways. And one thing that we learned was that, I think in the past, a lot had been able to be said in public forums, social media and so forth, that without the school district was very careful not to respond, because we have to be careful how we respond. I think the more people who were educated and understood the realities of things, or the truth, or the other side of the story, were able to be vocal, most of the time in appropriate ways. Sometimes, that not necessarily was the case. But I think that from a board standpoint, being able to be able to know when someone from a community or from another community or an organization or a town employee or something like that makes a statement, especially if they're making a statement in public that is not factual, is not accurate, being able to with grace, but also being firm, be able to say, no, that's not the case, and here's where you can find that information. I think that's important. So knowing it enough where the information is good. And I think this was part of a step to explain where some of that is for people, to where they can go see it on the website, and also hopefully refer back to this. And certainly, Carrie and I, Carrie more than myself, but I will, hang out, kind of support you, be able to answer any questions that people do have along the way, and hopefully earlier rather than later. It is, Chris hit it right on the head of the nail there, is school district budgeting is very different. We're accountable to a lot of people. We're accountable to each and every child. We're accountable to their families, we're accountable to the taxpayers, we're accountable to the state, we're accountable to the federal government, we're accountable, and we have a lot of regulations that we have to follow, and we have a lot of hoops that we have to jump through as well. And we have to be precise.
And the thing I notice is you have to spend the money before they'll give it to you, which that, you know, at least that looks as though you have to have the receipt that you already paid for, you know, help for some of these programs, and then they'll reimburse you, which, you know, that has got to be very tricky, as Chris had mentioned. So.
Yeah.
Good
Yeah.
job.
All right.
Thank you, Carrie.
Thank you, Carrie, very much.
Yeah.
Thank you, Carrie. And thank you to your staff, please. I will let them know. Thank you.
All right, we're on to the superintendent's report.
Well, you've heard from me. And we've already talked about the October 16th school funding fairness presentation. There's some work that has to be done in order to make that happen. And yes, we have to do some publicity with that. But that's in the works, and that's all part of this conversation about educating people about taxes, about our community. When we spoke with the individual who's going to, I believe, leading the event, or at least organizing it, she talks about how they take their basic structure and make sure that they research the communities that we're in and try to make it very relevant to our position or our place, you know, as opposed to just any general area in the state of New Hampshire.
It's not a boilerplate.
It's not a boilerplate. Yeah, there probably are some boilerplate elements to it, but it gets personal. This is our first board meeting where school has been in session. I am pleased to say that this is plastic, but here we go. We've had a great start to the school year. I would say in many ways the smoothest in this is now my 11th year, so in the decade that we've had just very good systems in place. Not saying that it's smooth in an easy way. It's smooth in a way where it's functioning the way it's supposed to. The learners are happy. I've been to all the schools. I was at JGS this morning. I'm here a fair amount, going back and forth from area to area, and I just see a lot of happy, well-adjusted individuals. It's early on, you know, maybe the homework hasn't piled up yet, but in general, people are it's a very good start to the year, and all the principals have provided me information to that point. I think from a curriculum and instruction standpoint, we had a presentation on the 18th, which was last month. That was the last board meeting we had. The principals talked about some reports having to do with New Hampshire SAS, the state assessment, SATs, etc., things of that nature. And one of those areas, we know that as a board, we've had a fair amount of conversation around reading and writing and the efforts that we're taking that we implemented last year in order to move forward in those areas. Those efforts continue, and we plan to strengthen those throughout the year. And we have a very consistent approach from pre-K all the way through grade 8. And we're also working to strengthen our high school approaches as well. And in some cases, align them to some of what we've been able to do in the middle school areas. The same thing is desired in the area of mathematics. I mean, we have to be careful not to inundate our teachers all at once with just new. But we are going to be having that conversation this year about our elementary mathematics curriculum along with our middle school. And we do have approach in the middle school and a curriculum in the middle school that we believe is going to work and be good. And we've done a lot of professional development with that. And the middle school itself has actually doubled its instructional time in the area of mathematics this year. So that has transpired. But we want to make sure that we have continuity again from pre-K all the way through grade 8. And so we'll be looking at the materials that we're using and the scope and sequence that we're using and the approaches that we're taking at the elementary school this year. Some of that's just going to be done through some general curriculum work and work in groups and making sure that we're aligning, making sure that everything's aligned well to the standards. And also we'll be looking at formal curriculum. We have, again, an actual formal curriculum that is continuous all the way through grade 8. And we have that opportunity to do the same thing in mathematics. But we do want to do our due diligence to make sure we're getting the right materials. So you'll hear more about that in the months to come. Yep.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Christine, you seemed to mention at the last meeting that do they make all the kids take the SATs, whether or not they want to take them or not?
The SAT is the 11th grade assessment. So it is the state's 11th grade assessment. So every learner who's in 11th grade takes the SAT.
Okay, but the SAT is in college entrance exam SATs.
The English and mathematics portion of I think are there 3 parts of the SAT now?
There were for a while,
Yeah.
but now they've.
Now they're back to 2. Okay.
Yeah,
So they take the 2 pieces of that. Yes. And so some of those individuals are going to take this. So all of them take it once. All right. And so that's just what the state assessment is. So rather than taking a designed New Hampshire SAS test,
They do the
they do this
aptitude
classic
test for the
aptitude test.
state.
Yes, for all individuals. So if we have 80 people who are in the 11th grade year, all 80 of those individuals take that assessment. And then those who are applying to certain types of schools that take the SAT or that want or require the SAT or ACT for that matter, are going to take that perhaps multiple times so that, anyone who's going to be looking at going to specific locations, specific schools might use, if they go and take the SAT a second time, for instance, you might have a better math score. They can mix and match with those areas.
Where I'm coming from is in a lot of schools in Massachusetts.
Yeah.
Only the students who are college bound take that. So that, this is giving me some insight because this is what I was having trouble here. Because only the students who are interested in going to college take them in Massachusetts, whereas you're being forced to just give it to the whole student body, and it's not really meant for that even. So I can understand why the scores would be lower when it's just everybody has to take it, whether they're interested in going to college or not. And
yeah, it averages out like that. So you'll have people who are, scoring, high, and some of them are scoring lower, and then you're kind of getting in that middle. Regardless of what those are, I mean, it is what it is, right? It's a state assessment. The state standardized assessments, one-time type kind of snapshots. They aren't the end-all be-all. They are an important snapshot, and it does give us information. And so I know that this year and I mean last year and the year before as well, we had developed groups of individuals to work on data systems better, and they're getting more sophisticated looking at that information to be able to find out those areas that we need to focus more of our efforts. And so that's how we view these assessments, as tools in order to improve ourselves in those areas. And then and hopefully even when we have all learners taking assessments like that, we want them to all do well, and we want them to all take it seriously. They're not all going to be at the same spot. It's not going to happen.
I was getting a sense that they aren't all taking it seriously because the principal said that a lot of them, just fly through it because they get to leave when it's done.
They do. And I think that what I would say, because I'm not there, I don't, while they're taking the assessment, so I can't speak to that, but I do know that even with the digital assessment from grades 3 through grade 8, there are some times when that assessment gets actually tossed out because the student took it too quickly, right? And so it's like, no, this is not going to count. It's an irregularity. We got to go back and do it again. You get to report those irregularities and all that kind of stuff. So even, you know, I used to proctor the SAT when I was a math teacher, and the first 5 years of my teaching, I did it quite often. And there was even with all those individuals who are paying to take the assessment, because no one's paying to take that assessment. That's just what we're taking. Big difference in how long people take,
Right.
you know, and some are like done like that, like, ooh, that either went really well or
Yeah.
it didn't go so well. So, yeah, so I mean, I think that it more time than not, if the test has been designed properly, it's going to take you the time
Right.
to take that assessment. If you're speeding through it, the results are gonna follow.
I did some research after our last meeting on that question and to find out, because I had 5 kids go through this school. And I remember the first one was driving them on Saturday to Peterborough, paying money to get the SAT, but I remember the older ones were here in the cafeteria. And they so I went back and saw that in 2015, New Hampshire passed the law to make the SAT one of their standardized tests across the board for everybody. Everybody had to take that as the New Hampshire standardized test. So then I went back and saw, well, how many kids actually took it here in 2014? You can find those records. And we had a larger population here at Conant in 2014, and 42 kids took the SAT of that larger population. Whereas now we have, 80, 90 kids taking the SAT. So yeah, the numbers are that, again, it's that, how do you fund the district based on a 1-day test? It's very confusing to me. So, yeah, that's, yes, Charlie.
I keep hearing this 1-day test, all right? And to me, I think that any test is to test progress over a certain period of time. If you have an annual test, that test is supposed to test your progress during that 1 year period of time. So to me, it's not a 1-day test, right? It's a test, it's a measurement that occurs in 1 day about things that should have transpired over the previous time period. So to me, when someone says, "Oh, it's a 1-day test," it's a one-time thing. It's not really what it is. Okay, it's really a measurement tool that you use to measure certain progress over a certain period of time. So to me, it's not a 1-day test.
I just want to quickly just make an addendum, not a counter, but an addendum to that. So the Ames web test is exactly that, where you had this 3 times a year, what the kids are
But that,
learning. And what
yes,
you're
but that 1/3 of a year is testing 1/3 of a year. It's not
so
testing
they
just 1
can see
day.
the progress from fall to winter to spring. And see that, yep, there's growth, and we've shown that there's great growth in that time, and then it goes year to year. The standardized tests are nationwide tests, kind of trying to equalize what every single person is learning. So
Which is
so the SAT is a nationwide test, right? So the kids in the 11th graders in Mississippi are learning the exact same thing as in New Hampshire, is the exact same thing as Washington, regardless of the economic status and materials and tutorials and training available to them and textbooks available to them. So it's not an equal test. The Ames Web is a much better way of saying, yes, now this child is showing progress here, here, and here. So I hear that, but you're taking a nationwide thing and trying to make it like we're not all teaching the same thing or the same way and have access to the same resources. So it's not an equal thing.
But
But
we have different tests for different.
Yeah, the assessments are different. So like an Ames Web, and I know we weren't gonna, this is not on the agenda, but just so that there's some understanding. Ames Web is both a universal screener and a progress monitoring tool. What that means is that all your learners take that assessment, you find out kind of where you're normed, and then based upon where they score in that normed percentage, you might target interventions in specific areas. Ames Web's very skill driven, so it's focused. Ames Web is similar. Ames Web would have matched up nicely with kneecap. Like if you saw the Ames Web, you saw how they were mostly green and so forth, you would see very high percentages. That would have gone well with kneecap when we had that 2014 beforehand with No Child Left Behind, because it was a more of a skills type of assessment. You could actually practice for the kneecap and do all that test prep and get there. You can do a little bit of that for the New Hampshire SAS as well, because there's stylistic types of questions. New Hampshire SAS is a very different assessment. It is looking at the synthesis, students' ability to synthesize all those skills and to be able to solve problems. And so it is good that we take, I think it's good that we take that assessment, that we get that information, so that we can continue to improve our curriculum and our instruction efforts, because we want our kids to be critical thinkers, thinking at higher levels, and to be able to synthesize the information that they have. I think that when I talk about a one-time assessment, like that's one data point. It's an important data point, but there are many other aspects of being a student and being an individual who's going to be thriving in the 21st century that they need to have. Some of them are social, some of them are work oriented, some of them are it is innovation, their ability to create with one another because of the types of societies that we're in. And then yes, they need to have the skills as well, and then yes, they need to be able to synthesize their skills and think at much higher levels of thinking. And so there's a lot and they need to be good citizens. So how, measuring all those areas, we want them to also take risks. So one of the areas that gets us into a higher rank, I think in US News and World Report and maybe Best Schools, I can't remember what, they all look at different things. Best Schools doesn't look as much at the New Hampshire, like the state assessment. They look at other things. The US News and World Report looks at the state assessment a little bit more than the others. But they try to diversify what they're looking for in AP assessments, for instance. How many people are taking your AP test? So getting more individuals, maybe that wasn't something that they wanted to do or thought they were going to do, but getting them to challenge themselves more and then of course pass those assessments is really important. So that's something that I know that this school has increased over the past several years. So it takes time. It takes time to continue. School improvement has to be a continuous effort. They've got to have the culture to be able to do that. I'm happy to say that the school does have the culture to continuously improve, and they have the systems to continuously improve. But we have to deal with hard conversations, and we got to use the data we have, whatever data we have, to keep on improving ourselves and do better each year for each group of kids. They deserve it.
Thank you.
I asked a question about something Ruben said on a slightly different topic, although I think related. And actually, I don't even know if I heard you correctly, Ruben, but did you say the middle schools had increased or doubled the amount of math education time or something?
More or less doubled. They went from a single block to a full block of mathematics on a daily basis. So some of that is for more direct instruction, more time to work on problems that are much weightier, and that you find it really difficult to do in a 45 minute period of time. And also to provide more intentional and targeted intervention in the moment, whether it be intervention just for that day and time period on the topic that they're having difficulties with, or more of a long-term intervention strategy with a group of individuals who, for instance, on an Ames Web assessment is showing maybe a little bit of a deficiency in an area such as like ratios and proportions or something like that.
Nice.
Yeah.
Chris?
Yeah, just something quick that's kind of related, so
Mhm.
I'll be quick because I realize this is completely related.
Everyone's got
But-
a quick thing. And Ruben's never quick, so that's just. that's the way it
Not
is.
usually either.
Yeah.
But I relating to tests that, are required, for graduation or for tracking. I learned this week, and maybe I should have already known that, in order to graduate, you need to pass like as a civics exam,
Yeah.
the citizenship test. I thought that was, maybe I should have known that. It was just a conversation with the
Mhm.
history teacher. So I don't know. It was interesting to me because, I pay attention to news about public education. You often hear like, they don't teach civics. They don't, it's actually a requirement that all of our students pass the same, I believe it's the same naturalization exam that, new citizens of the country pass. And that's part of, from what I understand, our civics. I don't know. It's just
That is true.
something I hadn't heard, and I think will be helpful for people to know. Anyway.
And we do pledge to the flag every day. Just,
All right, we're gonna stop.
yeah, just. And, yeah.
We have the consent agenda next, but per some conversations that we're going to do a quick information piece before we get to the consent agenda. Would you mind terribly if I took over the projector real quick?
Go right ahead.
It will take very short amount of time. All right, so the background is that when you look at the consent agenda, and this is just really for information purposes, but I also want to leave the board some decision, decision from yours too. So, one of our board members is going to be a coach again for multiple years, and thank you so much for doing that. And, that coaching position comes with a stipend. And so in looking at, two RSAs, I believe that this says that absolutely this school board person is not in a conflict to achieve the stipend. And the piece of this, this is for qualifications of a school board member. And, this section here, no person employed on a salaried basis by a school administrative unit or by any school district within a school administrative unit shall be a school board member in any district of the SAU. Salary positions shall include, but not limited to, the following: teacher, custodian, administrator, secretary, school bus driver, if paid by the district, school lunch worker, and teacher's aide. So the key for me here is on a salary basis. So then I looked up to find an RSA for what New Hampshire defines as a salary as per a stipend. And they do not define a stipend, but they define a salary in their chapter 275 of their labor laws. And I'll just go down where salary is. Sorry, where would it go? Payroll. Did have salary. I had it right there. Oh, the term salaried employee, number 6. Term salaried employee means any employee who, under an employment agreement or as a matter of policy or practice, regularly receives each pay period a predetermined or fixed amount of money constituting compensation based on a predetermined amount of wages to be paid as determined by a daily rate, weekly rate, bi-weekly rate. So to me, again, this does not constitute a stipend. This is more of a salary, a paycheck. But, so I would like to keep Chris's stipend in the consent agenda as a norm, rather than taking it out. And is there, but any conversation, any discussion, any confusion? Is this just for sake of transparency? I just wanted to have the RSA's up. So
Very helpful.
The RSA's are pretty clear.
Yeah.
Yeah. Love my RSA's.
I love my RSA's too. All right, all good?
There has been a change in how stipends are paid. That will be part of the district handbook that we.
But is it a regularly?
Mm,
So this is again, I'm gonna
That's,
back to
I'm
that.
looking at Carrie.
Under employment agreement regularly receives each pay period. The predetermined or fixed amount.
Mm,
Yes.
So they're not paid in one check anymore.
It's not paid in one
Correct.
check anymore. Nope. There,
But
it's
pay period.
split up evenly for a period of time. Yeah. Not all year round.
doesn't say, oh, you're right.
I know,
No, and it
But-
is for, it is for.
but
a
that
finite-
language is
We would've looked
exactly.
at the RSA first.
Yeah.
Mhm. Predetermined if
So that's a tough one. For instance, if there was a $2,000 stipend, it would be paid out in there were 10 weeks of a period of time where it was happening. That means there would be 5 pay periods during that time frame, and that $2,000 would be spread out evenly over the 5 pay
For the 5 periods. That's
5 pay
correct.
periods.
So, but I don't know that that's a tough one. So they do regularly within that short window of time, but it's not all year, so.
Right, but this never, like, there's nothing, I read the whole thing and it doesn't, there is no mention of stipend anywhere in the RSAs. And there is no time frame on this, so I'm
Yeah.
glad we're actually that now.
Well, I mean, they're a temporary employee is really what it is. It's a temporary employee.
Right, they are a temporary employee, that is correct.
And
So,
all those examples that you have there are not temporary employees.
No, these are year round, this is not a,
Mhm.
yeah, I can't imagine considering a stipend a salary.
I've never seen a stipend used anywhere. I mean, honestly, I mean, I see it as payment but
Mhm.
I've just never seen it used.
That particular wording.
That word, I've never seen that word used anywhere, except if you're, like a grad student or something.
And I think where it comes in and in need is you have a salaried person, you have somebody working year round at salary and then doing something, very different, doing the drama club, doing something very different for a short amount of time. That's not part of their contracted duties. So with that would be the extra time.
right, and salaried individuals are typically fall under the Department of Labor definition as an exempt employee.
Right, not the
So,
school cafeteria workers
you-
or the teachers.
Right,
Right, they wouldn't strike me as being salaried because they're not exempt, but,
And according to the RSA, they are, yeah.
Do we have,
Yeah, the majority
clubs
of,
that run year round?
Say it again?
Do we have clubs that run year round, like robotics?
well, that run through their school year.
Through the school year?
Yeah.
So then that stipend is actually paid out throughout the entire school year?
yeah, to me, it's less, I mean, I think if we were to. If we're looking at it, I think that the stipend now as. The way it needs to be paid out. Does fit the conversation here. I think the phrase is all about salaried positions. I think the argument is there. To me, a coach is not a salaried, a part-time coach is not a salaried position. I don't think that is, none of those positions, those are all full-time or, employees. There's someone who has, they're permanent, that's a better way of saying it, they're permanent employees up there. Yes, I would agree that usually they're exempt and there's only 2 categories there that are exempt and the rest of them would be non-exempt. But regardless of that, they're all permanent employees. A coach is not a permanent employee in a high school or in our high school.
but I don't see how that, condition is described in any of these rules, I mean, okay, I personally, a stipend, I could justify it in my mind because it's for him to pay for his expenses to be there or something, because it's a stipend also can cover like your printing costs or something that will help you perform whatever duties you're doing. But I don't know, it looks pretty gray,
Then my recommendation would be that we stick with the, not knowing that the pay timing had changed, which seems like it shouldn't make a difference. It's just this language that's funny. I think that made it gray. But why don't we look at policy committee as well and see what we want to bring before the board for policy to make it less gray. That's really the intent of policy, to take these laws and try to make them as clear for our usage as possible. So then do we want, so then it does become, because we're, we don't want to wait. Chris needs to be able to coach this team. So, so what do we want to do for today for the consent agenda? Are we good to keep it as is? And then go back for future reference, to take a look at the policy and make it clearer?
What was that again?
So my suggestion is that we keep this as is
Mhm.
with the stipend. And then go back
Sure.
and look at
Yeah.
policy
Yeah.
for future use, to just make it clearer.
Yeah, that's
and
fine.
Make a board decision. on
And I'll
that.
just to be clear that it's not a condition of me, continuing in the position for sure.
That's
think-
sweet, but that's not.
No,
something
this
to
has come up because I think this is my 6th year coaching and a 6th team, and I've never taken the stipend before. Most of that's because there's only one. If you look at all the different things, there's no assistant coaches. So in most cases, I elect to fund the assistant coaches with it because I think that's best for the team. For this particular case, I'd have something in mind for that stipend money to put towards to make sure the kids get the best field hockey experience as they can, because I can't give it to them. So I have some things in mind in order to spend that, so that they get that. Just for background, I know it doesn't make any difference as far as the language, but that's why in the past I've
Mhm.
tried to do the right thing for what I think is that group of kids, and I think that would be the best way to do it here. I also think it's important that the cost of our athletic program is reflected in our budget and our actuals, especially when we're looking at it so critically. So to refuse that makes it seem like we don't need that money, when next year we will, because I can guarantee you I will not be filling that position next year. But yeah, however we want to handle it, I'm fine with.
All right, and so we'll keep it in the consent agenda. And is there anything else on the consent agenda that is needed to have discussion on? I don't know what SE teacher means. Special ed?
Yeah.
Special education?
So, yeah,
I'm used to SBED. I don't know, I didn't know if it was okay.
sure. So we have to move money to a line to contract an individual. So that's what that would be. The Great Minds, Wit and Wisdom, Geodes, and Eureka, those are curricular areas because of professional development, and I believe some materials. Is it materials or online subscriptions? Yep, the online subscriptions and some book replacements and consumables. Because we had to make because the transfer is too much to do without bringing to the board. So that's what that was for. And let's see.
And that's coming from salaries.
Mhm.
And the unfilled positions.
An unfilled position, yeah. And then in the donation, Jaffrey Ringe Education Foundation, JREF, annually has been good about providing the district some money toward the opening day, whether it be breakfast, lunch, or brunch in this case, kind of moving it together. It was a brunch this year, and so we have a check in of $1,000 from them to the school district for this purpose. It's in a safe and was put in a safe immediately, but left there because we can't spend it until the board approves the receiving of that. And then the Harris Education Center today, actually, we were notified that the Harris Center would like to provide us with $546 worth of, I don't think the district necessarily will actually get a check from them. It's going to be more that they're going to pay. They're going to deal with the other companies, the bus companies and the Miller State Park, and it amounts to the equivalent of $546. So that's over $500. Then we need to bring it to the board for approval. And yeah, I think that's it for the consent agenda.
There a motion to accept the consent agenda?
So move.
Thank you, John. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Christine. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Vote passes 7-0-0. And then I will give this back to you.
Okay.
Thank you. This one's for you. All right, we have the minutes to approve for the August 4th meeting, the August 4th public hearing, the August 4th second meeting that we had after that, the hearing, and the minutes of the 8/18 meeting. So I think we'll do these in group by date, since we have different members available for each ones. So is there a motion to approve the minutes for the 3 August 4th, 2025 meetings?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Christine. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Sandy. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain?
Abstain.
This, sorry,
Abstain.
thank you. So passes 6-0-1. Minutes for the August 18th meeting. Is there a motion to accept those?
I move to accept those as presented.
Thank you, Sandra. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Christine. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And abstain.
Aye.
Abstain.
Okay, so we have the ballot of 4-0-3.
So Charlie wants to say something.
I have a comment about minutes. Should I make it now or?
Sure, please. I'm sorry. Yeah, I should have had a discussion on that one. Yeah.
We have not been in compliance with RSA 91A regarding non-public minutes. And we should make an effort to try to come into compliance, I think.
All right, by posting them?
By,
Yeah, they should be posted within 72 hours unless they're sealed.
Okay,
okay,
good.
yep.
Thank you, Charlie. Appreciate that. Action items coming up, district handbook.
Interesting.
Not the document.
Well, it wasn't the one I thought, but I think it should be okay. Okay, so much of the handbook is the same as it was last year. There are some changes, the dates, as we saw up front. Everything should be highlighted in yellow unless we have the wrong document here. I'll check it out. All right, so here was an addition. This is actually the payment of stipends. So as of the 2025-26 school year, fixed stipends will be paid out in equal biweekly increments rather than a one-time payment of the stipend end date. For example, if your fixed stipend of 1,000 has a date range of October 1st through December 31st, you will start getting paid increments of $142.86 starting on the 17th of October. And it goes from there. So that was an added section. We clarified an area right here that, we are in compliance with the law. We make sure, we try to make sure that everyone gets a 30-minute break. There are times when that can't happen. So the law would state if you can't do that, you need to make sure that people are paid for that. So we pay everyone through their lunch breaks. But we just want to make sure that that provides us a little more flexibility if necessary. And then, although JREA, it's important to note that they have a duty-free lunch period at least equal to the time of students. So some, I think, like for instance, at this school building, I think the lunch is maybe 20 or 25 minutes. I'm not sure, one of those. There are some other changes, JRAO vacation day changes. There was two others. Yep, this language needed to be changed. The JRSSA agreement differed from what was in there. And so this is clear. This is it. It's the exact language from the bargaining unit. There's a spot for New Hampshire retirement here that changed this past year. This year, yep. So for this coming year, the next 2 years, I believe it is, the contributions will be 19.23 by the district instead of 19.64, and it'll be 12.75 instead of, is that right? Instead of
13.53.
instead of 13.53. That's right.
That's what it was.
Yep, okay. And let's see if there was one more. I think that's it. Nope. We have to add the New Hampshire, I believe, was part of law, was New Hampshire Parent Bill of Rights need to be added to every handbook, is my understanding. So it's in all of the handbooks that the schools that you've already adopted, but we're putting it in this one too. So that's just verbatim what everyone else has. And that, I believe, was the last item we needed to change in this document. Yep. Okay. It turns out with all that, it's actually 28 pages. And the table of contents will have a couple of different numbers than what are up there.
All right, is there a motion to approve the district handbook, please? Thank you, Charlie. And is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Judy. Any more discussion?
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
That's what we all keep saying tonight, the question, but I do believe this is a quick question. In our discussion about stipends and how they'll get paid differently, does that the school board members receive a stipend each year? Will we have that small amount spread out across multiple paychecks?
So there were a couple of exceptions. One is the school board was not going to be paid out that way because it's in policy. And if there were any specific payment schedules outlined in a CBA, like the teacher's perk is identified in the collective bargaining agreement, that it's not paid until the end in September. So I think it was just that, maybe the district clerk and the treasurer and the assistant treasurer, because they're specified in policy.
Okay.
As to when they'll be paid.
Gotcha. Fair. Thank you.
We have a motion and a second.
You made it quick, right? So it was good.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? So passes 700. And we don't have any policies to review now. First day attendance count.
Well, out of the individuals we have within the school, we have a good percentage of people showed up to school on the
Yes.
first day. So that's good. You know, it's always fun when, oh, well, half because
Last year it was 10% that didn't show up at the high school the first day, so I'm pleased.
yeah. So,
How do we do on faculty showing up? Things like that?
oh, very good. Yeah. No, we've had good attendance. So, yeah. I'm looking at this and this is, okay, it has a preschool, yep, down here. Okay,
Ridge Memorial had almost perfect attendance the first day.
Of course.
kindergarten, oh,
Fifth
fifth grade,
Yeah,
oh,
Those are their kids.
yep. GGS third grade had perfect attendance. And you had almost one out of every group thereafter. See how our, oh, preschool. No perfect attendance there. Okay,
Like,
Some people just can't let go of Labor Day weekend.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's become a 4-day weekend, not a 3-day weekend.
Yeah.
It's very true. All right.
And
any
it
other-
will go longer.
It would be interesting to see over time if, having our preschool increases our kindergarten,
Hmm.
right? The
That's a
children
lot
are
of
more
preschool.
likely to start in our school system if they've gone through preschool.
Mhm. It would be interesting.
Let's go on to the next public comment session. Okay, policies up on the board. If anybody has any comments about what we discussed here tonight, or questions, now's a great time.
One,
Please,
Kathy Kozlowski,
of Ren.
knowing that we're going to have this meeting hopefully in October 16th. I'm hoping the location is going to be where we have good sound.
Oh, yes, that specific meeting.
Fair funding.
Because I think, Ruben, you said we have new sound in Conan and in RMS, or?
There are newer sound systems in both of those locations, yes.
Just so long as we're not in cafeteria again. That was awful.
It's a tough dynamic in that those high ceilings and a place that isn't set up for it.
In a school board ever, for a presentation like this, would it be considered a school board meeting? Or the school board sponsoring this presentation? I'm just wondering if there's offsite that you could do that maybe might get more people to come.
Yeah, it can be done off-site. There's no-
Cool if we could get the park later.
Yeah.
That'd be really cool.
I do think that, and I don't know, because I haven't heard the format, but I do believe that some of their presentations, they'd like to have round like tables or tables where people can have a conversation with one another at times. So it might be the seating of a park theater might be challenging for that purpose, but you know.
And you do want a lot of public input, so yeah,
Mhm.
that's a hard one.
I was thinking even the rec center in range.
Mhm.
That's a great idea, actually. That's an excellent idea.
Just a thought.
Yeah,
Hopefully they bring their own sound system.
no, that's a really good idea. Well, our sound system's fairly portable too.
We do have some portable sound systems, yes.
Not a bad idea
Mhm.
to look at. Thank you. Any other public comments? Okay. Cool. All right. Board matters. The one that I had is that the New Hampshire School Board Association Delegate Assembly is coming up again. And the date is October 25th. It's held in Concord, and we should send a delegate. We should send somebody to go and vote for.
I move that Lisa Wiley go to be our delegate.
Gee, funny enough, I'm just not available.
I
that
second
night.
it. Oh, no, you.
2 years running, I've done my time, and it's very cool. Again, we love our RSAs, so it's a fascinating, absolutely fascinating, and it's really cool because you get to hear from another school who last year got the New Hampshire School Board of Excellence. So they come up and they talk about what they did, which is really like, yes, we got it, and yes, I did it. But hearing Oyster River the year before was really cool, and that's a neat part of it. But the discussions are fascinating, so I truly recommend this, and I hope that one of you guys right now will say, oh, I'd love to do that, and can commit. Because we are getting close to time and that person needs to register. Registration closes, I guess, October 22nd, so they would use that link. So, anybody right off the bat saying, oh, I think that'd be really cool?
Right off the bat, I can say that, that's Parents Weekend, so. I will not be going.
Okay.
Although, honestly, your presentation last year made it seems so fascinating. You did such a great job. I remember that presentation and I look forward to seeing the presentation from whoever goes this year. You really did a nice job.
Yeah. People last year were still calling me up and asking me about aspects of it. Yep, so it was,
That's
no, I had people call about various parts of,
my kids
of,
calling you.
well, no, your kids did not call me. No, no. Different superintendents from different schools. Yeah.
So we will get back to this, but if by next meeting, somebody can please volunteer for that. It is a long day. You're there till little past lunchtime, and they give you a nice breakfast spread. They don't give you lunch, so it's a long day, but it's nice and really neat to be part of that community. So everybody's in the same boat.
What was the date again, Lisa?
It is October, when, can you scroll up a little bit?
October 25th.
October 25th.
October 20th, scroll up.
22nd, right?
Nope, scroll up. That's scrolling down.
Oh, you want me to go that
Here we
way?
go. That's
Okay.
the other up. Okay. It is scheduled for Saturday, October 25th. Okay. And if we have no other board matters, I would like to call a very brief, very brief, non-public.
John's
I
raised
do
his
have
hand.
a-
Okay,
Another
but
board.
just so you know, I want to call an extremely brief non-public to address Charlie's mention about being in compliance. We need to be in compliance with our non-public today, so we need to go back into non-public. Go ahead, John.
All right, so I just wanted to mention that the Facilities Committee is scheduled to meet next Monday at 11:30. And it's typically on the same day as the second board meeting, but this month is gonna be on the 15th, which is next Monday. And at that meeting, the East Coast Renewable Energy is gonna do a short presentation, a Zoom presentation. They won't be in attendance, is my understanding. And they're gonna talk to us about the costs and benefits of doing rooftop solar. And, you know, that solar contributing to coverage of our electrical costs. So they've contacted us, asked if they could do that, so that's scheduled for next Monday, 11:30.
So then we won't have a meeting the following,
No,
okay.
Our next school board meeting is September 22nd. There's our next school board. meeting. All right, any other?
Yeah, I'll just mention that that Kidder Law Conference, which I know that I went to a few years ago and found to be excellent. I'd say particularly as a new board member, is Wednesday, October 8th at the same Capone Center as well. So that's something for board members to consider. I'm sure you got in your email, but just to throw that date out there.
that is particularly interesting.
Yeah,
Some of the best school attorneys in the state are there making presentations on a wide variety of topics. You can't go to all of them, but you can pick about half of them because they're set up that way. And it's a valuable opportunity to learn in greater depth.
All right. Then we will take a motion from somebody for our final event for the night.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second,
Do we go into non-public first? All right, we need a motion to go into non-public, please,
so
for purpose of reputation. Thank you, John. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Christine. Roll call vote, Charlie? Chris?
All right.
Christine? Aye. John?
Aye.
Judy?
Hi.
Sandra?
Aye.
Right, thank you, guys. And I say aye. It'll just be a second, so. Chris.
My stuff.
Sorry,
As soon as I heard it, I have a separate bag for that.